Scheduled for argument in December, Moore v. Harper concerns the ability of state courts to enforce state constitutions and state laws in elections. Many are sounding the alarm that the decision could have a monumental effect on elections for years to come. In the case Moore v. Harper, the U.S. Supreme Court will not only examine congressional redistricting in North Carolina, it will also be examining a far-right legal idea known as the independent state legislature doctrine. In its most severe form, the ISL argues that only state legislatures should govern elections at the state level. Former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton attempted to warn the American people of the possible consequences back in October. Here's a look.
Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election. And they're not making a secret of it. The right-wing controlled Supreme Court may be poised to rule on giving state legislatures, yes, you heard me that correctly, state legislatures the power to overturn presidential elections. Just think, if that happens, the 2024 presidential election could be decided not by the popular vote or even by the anachronistic Electoral College, but by state legislatures, many of them Republican-controlled.
The case arises from gerrymandering of congressional districts in North Carolina. Leaders of the effort said their goal was to give Republicans control of 10 of the state's 13 congressional seats. The North Carolina Supreme Court found that in violation of the state constitution and appointed a commission to redraw the districts. Now the U.S. Supreme Court is slated to hear the case, with the argument based on a provision of Section 4 of Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, which says that the legislature of each state shall determine the time, place, and manner of congressional elections. The ISL interprets this literally to mean that a legislature's decision about elections are not subject to court review. The ISL has become increasingly popular on the MAGA far right, but it is by no means embraced by all conservatives. Former Department of Homeland Security official Paul Rosenzweig makes a conservative argument against the ISL in an article published by the Bulwark earlier this week. Attorney Rosenzweig describes the ISL as an attempt to create new rules about elections in the middle of the game that could have catastrophic effects if the U.S. Supreme Court agrees with it in Moore v. Harper. The former DHS official slams the ISL as a twofold threat to democracy. He presents a possible outcome stating, if again hypothetically a Secretary of State certified a particular result, the state legislature would have the authority to independently determine that fraud had occurred and disregard the results determined by the state election authorities. And because the state courts could not intervene, it is likely that the legislature's actions would prevail, even if they were arbitrary, motivated by partisanship, and without any real evidence. Say what you will about the ISL as a political device for the accumulation of power, but there is absolutely nothing about the theory that ought to appeal to conservative lawyers. The hallmarks of conservative legal thought are textualism, originalism, historicity, and judicial modesty. The ISL comports with none of these, he said. If the court accepts the independent state legislature theory, it will empower states to award their electoral votes to the candidate of their choosing, not necessarily the winner of the popular vote. If even a few states do it, it could decide the 2024 presidential election. Donald Trump and his supporters urged several state legislatures to do exactly that in 2020, though none ultimately did. If the Supreme Court establishes a precedent in Moore v. Harper, U.S. elections may never operate the same again. Thank you for watching Raw Story TV. Please be sure to visit us at rawstory.com, stay informed, and tap below to take action by liking, subscribing, and joining all those who like their news raw.